Well, good evening. Ethan back for a review tonight. Not a beer review, but an album review. And I'm going to be reviewing an album from one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite albums from one of my favorite bands, and it is Love It to Death by the Alice Cooper Band, released in March of 1971. This is their third album. Got a picture of the guys right there. This band consisted of course, Detroit-born Vincent Furnier, also known as Alice Cooper, guitarist Glenn Buxton, guitarist Michael Bruce, bassist Dennis Dunaway, and drummer Neil Smith. They formed in the mid to late 60s. In 1968, the band formed the name Alice Cooper, a name that Vincent / Alice would take on as his own when he went solo a couple years later. They started out in Los Angeles, and then in 1970 they relocated to Detroit, and the kind of growing rock scene that was going on there kind of influenced them to tighten up their sound for this album. And this album is considered by critics and most fans as when they really kind of struck it big. Their first two albums, Pretty's For You, released in 1969, and Easy Action, released 1970. I've listened to those. They're pretty good, but they're not as good as this. This would include their first hit single, I'm 18, which was their first song or single to hit top 40 in the U.S. Charts. This is considered, from what I'm reading, a influential album to punk, rock, and metal. Their third album, this is when they collaborated with producer Bob Ezrin, who was 22 years old at the time, young like the rest of the band. He helped them kind of polish up their kind of psychedelic sound from their first two albums, and kind of tighten up their sound, brush up on the production, make it more consolidated, so to speak, and thus you have this album, their third, which is considered one of their best. It's definitely one of my favorite. I love the album that would come later very much as well, Killer. This album features the song. It's got that cool face. That's Alice, or Vincent as he was known then, with his spider eyelash makeup. Side one, you have Caught in a Dream, which is kind of an up-tempo rocker. Then you have I'm 18, which is their hit single, kind of their classic song with that arpeggiated riff and the kind of anguished, tortured vocals about being a youth. Then you have Long Way to Go, which is kind of a fun, up-tempo song, fast-paced rock song. Then you have sort of a psychedelic, progressive rock, if you will, song in Black Juju, which was put together by drummer Dennis Dunaway. Or not drummer, bassist. And I really like the song Black Juju. It's kind of in the vein of some psychedelic and progressive songs like The Doors and early Pink Floyd. They were actually, I read they opened for both those bands in the late 60s, so I'm sure there was some influence there. I love Black Juju. It's a longer song, kind of a progressive, kind of ominous, macabre sounding song. Very fun, very fun. And then side two, you have Is It My Body, which is up-tempo, kind of a raunchy rocker, really good song. Then you have Hallowed Be My Name, which is Neil Smith, the drummer, put that song together. Really like it. It's kind of a haunting, kind of a mellow song that kind of explores some spiritual themes. And then you have another song, Second Coming, which is kind of the same, sort of a spiritual theme, with some really good lyrics, pretty intelligent lyrics. It's not just roughly put together rock music. There's some good lyrics here, good lyricist, Alice was a good lyricist. Second Coming is kind of a ballad. Then you have another concert staple, one of their most famous songs, in Ballad of Dwight Fry, which is a longer song, progressive, sort of about an institutionalized mental patient and his ensuing breakdown. His kid kind of wondering where he is in the beginning. It's got the piano and the kind of haunting spoken word in it. Really good song. Just Alice Cooper band through and through. Macabre, haunting, but fun and at the same time. And then you have a cover to finish off the album in Sun Arise, which is a cover from some Australian pop singer, I think, which kind of ends this album on a kind of a softer, lighter note. And it's kind of a fun, catchy, lighthearted song, if you will. So that's it, 9 tracks, and they are very tight, very fun songs. I enjoy them all. There's not one song on here I don't like, really. This such a great album. If you haven't heard of this album, or you just know Alice Cooper from his later work, like I did before I explored some of this earlier stuff, you're missing out. I'm in a group on Facebook called Rock and Roll Club, and someone posted an Alice Cooper song earlier today. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it got me inspired to listen to Alice Cooper, the Alice Cooper albums that I had. I mean, obviously I listened to them many times, but it kind of made me think about it and kind of want to come on here and do a review of one of my favorite albums. Again, the earlier Alice Cooper. They released 7 albums, I believe, as the Alice Cooper Band. Then he went solo in 1975 with Welcome to My Nightmare, which Bob Ezrin, the producer of this, also produced, who also produced Kiss, Destroyer. He was kind of a famous producer of music in the 70s, and he did, I think, The Wall in 1979 for Pink Floyd. He did some Deep Purple, I read. But Bob Ezrin, he would also come back to produce with Alice when Alice went solo. But yeah, their third album, and they released 7 from 69 to 73 as the Alice Cooper Band. 5 musicians, really great musicians. The guitarists, Glenn Buxton and what's the other guy's name? Let's see if I can see it on here. Glenn Buxton, what's his name? Glenn Buxton and Dennis Dunaway, great guitarists. They really have some catchy hooks in this album. Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway, the bassist, and Neil Smith, the drummer. And actually Glenn Buxton, the guitarist, what kind of made them kind of start out with this sort of outlandish stage persona that they had with the outfits and some of the makeup that they did came from him. He painted circles under his eyes with cigarette ashes, and soon the rest of the band followed with the ghoulish makeup and outlandish clothes. They are also influential to the shock rock genre. Alice is kind of known as the godfather of shock rock. If Ozzy Osbourne is the godfather of metal, Alice Cooper would be the godfather of shock rock. I've seen that said many times in the hard rock circles, I guess. Overall, the album is kind of macabre and dark, but catchy and fun at the same time. It's not overly flashy and anthemic like some of the later stuff. Like I do like your Poisons and your Feed My Frankenstein, some of the stadium rocker stuff that Alice did in the 80s. But for good rock, 70s rock music, this album is where it's at. This is, to me, this and the next album, Killer and School's Out and $1 Billion Babies, That's the apex for the Alice Cooper Band. That's some of their best work right there. That's my personal favorite for the band. I do love Welcome to My Nightmare, his first solo album. That's a good album. It's fun, but I just something about this first Alice Cooper Band I really, really like. And that's a cool photograph of the band there. Really cool photo. I really like that. Cool front cover too. The guy's kind of cutting up. This album is one of my favorites. Probably my second favorite. This and Killer, I'd have to do like an album war with the two to figure out which I like better, but they're so close. I love this album. Wanted to come on here and just review it. Really, not so much a review, but a praise. When I come on to review something like a beer or an album or whatever, generally it's more of a praise, unless of course it's something I haven't had yet. But if I come on here and do an album review, I'm not reviewing it. I've bought the album, I've listened to it multiple times, and I love it. And I love this album. No joke, over this past summer, I'd say a span of about 1 to 2 months, I listened to this album almost every stinking day, and that's not an overstatement. Love it. Really came to love it this past year in 2020. Really discovered a lot of their early music and just really fell in love with it. This album, for me, it's a 95 out of 100, 9.5 out of 10, 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's not quite perfect, but it's close, you know. One of my personal favorites. I'm glad I own it on vinyl. 95 out of 100 for Alice Cooper Band, released in 1971, their third album. 95 out of 100 for this. If you don't know of it or never heard of it, I suggest giving it a listen. It's a great album. Thank you for watching.